Hello, biology students. We're in lab 7.1. We're looking at deer mouse fur color in Concord, learn.concord.org. We're in activity 2, lesson 1.2. We have collected data with hawks. It says run the simulation with hawks. So if you remember, you grab your graph, you add hawks right away, you run it, and we go out to 60 months. And then we put the data in a data table. So once it's gone out to 60 months, you collect the data here. This is dark mice. That's the D in the data table. You don't want that first number. That's how many months it is. You want the second number because that gives you the y-axis. That's the number of mice. So this is dark mice, this would be medium mice, and this would be light mice. Now I have a table here with just some bogus data in it so we can talk about how to take percents. This is table 1, population data. I came up with some bogus average numbers. We took averages in the last video. You remember taking an average. If you want to get the average number of light mice, you add the number from trial 1, trial 2, and trial 3, and then you divide by 3. So you add those 3 numbers, and then you divide by 3 to get an average. Now these are bogus numbers because they're much too large, but they're good for just showing you how to calculate percent. So if we want to calculate percent, the first thing we have to do is come up with the total. So we need to add 42.3 plus 69.8 plus 33.4. So we'll ask Siri, hey Siri, what's 42.3 plus 69.8 plus 33.4?
42.3 plus 69.8 plus 33.4 is 145.5.
So Siri says it's 145.5. You can also do it on your calculator. So now that we have the total, if we want to get the average percent, we have to take the average percent of light mice, we have to take the number of light mice and divide it by the total, and then times it by 100. So let's ask Siri to figure out what the average percent of light mice is. So, hey Siri, what is 42.3 divided by 145.5 times 100?
42.3 divided by 145.5 times 100 is approximately 29.0721.
So we'll call that 29.1%. And then if I wanted to figure out the percent of medium mice, I would take 69.8 divided by the total times 100%. The formula's up here in case you forget. The average percent is the average from the average column over the total number of mice that you got out of the averages times 100. So I'll do medium for you one more time. Hey Siri, what is 69.8 divided by 145.5 times 100?
69.8 divided by 145.5 times 100 is approximately 47.9725.
So we'll call that, actually we should round up to 48%. Okay, and you know your percents are correct if they add to approximately 100. They should be within about 0.1% of 100. Sometimes rounding errors will give you some slightly over 100 or slightly under 100. So now that we've done our data for field mice, you can go ahead and do the beach mice. Beach mice, remember, you can reset this. You can add hawks, and you can change it to the beach. And then you can hit run, and you can see if you get the same results or different results. You can put that data in your table. remember to let it run out to 60 months. That's 5 years. So this number has to be 60. Collect data for dark mice, that's the D in the table, medium brown mice, which is the M in the table, and light mice here. So the light mice, that 10 is for the 10 months. You don't want that. You want to go to 60. So where it says 60, you don't want that number. That's the x-axis number. We want the y-axis number. We want the 22. So you could also just look and go, yep, that's about 22 on the y-axis once you get out to 60 months. So make sure you let your data run to 60 months. So we're going to go, we're going to assume you can fill out that first data table. And we're going to go to the second part here of activity 2. We're going to try it this time without hawks. So this time, do not add any hawks. And there's a different data table for this, and I'll show you that in a minute. But before you start, predict what might happen if there aren't hawks in this particular ecosystem. What's going to happen to the populations of mice? Is it going to be the different, or it's going to be the same? And then once you're filling out your data table, you can do question 5 and question 6. And make sure you use data from your data table in question 5 and question 6. So I'll help you get set up here. You want to click your graph. You don't want to add hawks. This time we are not adding hawks. Make sure you filled out question 4. Hit run. We can start with the field since that's what's first on the data table. And we're going to be filling out the data table. We're going to be filling out data table 2 here. And I filled out some of the data. Don't use that data. You want to collect your own. You're going to want to take the average, and then you want to take the average percent. We'll go over that again in just a moment. But this is the table you should be filling out when there are no hawks. It's data table 2, and then there are also some other questions to fill out. Table 3 is a summary of what you learned. So let's get started. Let's hit run. And I like to hit the pie chart up here as well. We always start out with 33% of all the mice, and make sure you don't put 33, 33, 33 on your data table, because that is not the correct one. And you want to put an average percent of 3 trials, so you can't take the percentages from this pie graph, but you can watch them and how they change over time in this population. It kind of looks like medium is the most popular right now, but we don't know over time if that's going to happen in every trial. Here I'm going to hit pause because we've hit 60. So the number of light mice is going to be right here. That would be 14. So by the L on the data table, I'd want to put 14. By the M on the data table, I'd want to put 24. You ignore that 60. That tells you it's 60 months. We know that. That's okay. That's going to be the same for all the different mice. And then the number of dark mice by the D on the data table, you hit, that's 11. So light is 14, 24, 11. 14, 24, 11. So let's go over to our data table here. And we can fill in 14, 24, and 11. Now, if I want to, when I want to take the average, I want to add all these numbers, 15 plus 5 plus 14, and divide by 3 to get the average. Remember, to take the average, you add up the 3 numbers and you divide by 3. That's to get the average. And then when you want the total for the average, you just add up all the L, M, and D numbers to get the total. Just this column to get the total. So I'll let you do the numbers for the beach, and then you can figure out percent. Remember, percent is just taking the average percent is taking the number of light mice, dividing by the total, and multiplying by 100. Here's your formula in case you need it. You can say average number of light mice over the total number of mice times 100 equals the average percent of light mice. Or if you're doing dark mice, average number of dark mice over total number of mice times 100 equals average percentage of dark mice. I know you can do this. So fill out table 2, and then you can talk about your data you figured out from table 2. Here, what were the final averages percentages in the beach environment? In the field environment, what were the final averages percentages for each of the different fur colors? So you get that from your data table that we were just looking at. And if you're doing this on your own, you can't have a class discussion, but think about what you have found out in comparing an environment with hawks to an environment without hawks. Have you noticed different sorts of changes in the number of different colors of mice? Now, yours is going to be a very small sample of data. You've only done 3 trials in each environment, but it'll still be interesting to do some comparisons. Let's go to the next part. Your next mission here is to create a model of what's going on here. So it shouldn't have the paint cans. You can get a piece of paper and take a picture of it with your iPad, or you're welcome to use any sort of drawing app that you have that you feel comfortable with. You can use something in Google, and when you want, in your model, you want to have the following components. You want soil brightness, fur brightness, environment or habitat, population, and predator. I can give you an example of a really simple model on a Jamboard here. I've put some sticky notes that represent my some of the terms in creating a model. Some of these terms right here. And I can notate the relationships like predators that live on the beach habitat. They will eat fewer light brown mice. They eat more dark brown. So since fewer of the dark brown mice survive, and you can't reproduce if you're dead, if you're hawk food, you can't reproduce. So more of the light brown mice reproduce. So more light brown mice reproduce. That affects the fur brightness, so affects the average fur brightness for the whole mouse population. And over time, this fur brightness is going to match the soil brightness. It's going to come to match that soil brightness. So we can say fur brightness matches soil brightness. If we have predators, we found out that the fur brightness, the color of the mice's fur, matches the color of the soil, because that helps them blend in, it helps them camouflage, it helps them not be seen by predators. So you can develop your own model, but this is just a good start. You should also talk about what happens in the field habitat, and I'll leave that up to you. So again, question 7, make sure your model includes soil brightness, fur brightness, the environment, the beach field, the population, all of the mice taken together, sort of the average, what's going on, and then predators, how do they affect things. Then you can answer question 8. What else do you think influences deer mouse fur color? There are predators, but what else might be going on in the environment? The temperature, the sun, the vegetation. What else might be going on? Mice behavior, mating, sometimes coloration, especially in birds, has a lot to do with attracting a mate. There could be a lot of different things. Use your imagination and really think about the environment that mice live in. How could we investigate those other factors besides predators that might influence mouse fur brightness or the color of mice's fur? So you have to come up with some good ideas. So the next thing we're going to do is go to the summary. But before I go to the next activity, you want to hit Show All Answers. And if you look on your iPad, you're going to see this little box in the upper right-hand corner at the very, very, very top. It's a little box with an up arrow in it. You click that arrow, you look for the blue options, you click PDF, then you go back to Report, and then you click Notability to download it so you can put it in Schoology. We'll go back to the activity here. The next activity is a summary, and if you've come to class, we've discussed this, but since you're working on your own, if you're watching the YouTube videos, please fill this out. Explain how and why fur color changes or does not change with predation and different environments. So basically explain what you learned in the lab. And we'll continue on Lesson 2 next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, biologists.